They say the truth will set you free, but they don't tell you that sometimes the truth comes wrapped in a confession, so devastating that freedom feels like the last thing anyone gets. They don't tell you that freedom has a price. And sometimes the person who pays it isn't the one who lied. My family had a tradition. Every New Year's Eve, we gathered around my mother's dining table, the same oak table where we'd celebrated birthdays, graduations, heartbreaks, and victories for the past 30 years. The table my father built with his own hands when I was 5 years old. Every scratch, every wine stain, every pencil mark from homework sessions, they were all part of our history. We'd eat too much. Drink wine my mother bought from the same liquor store for 20 years because she liked the owner's son. We'd laugh at old stories we'd heard 100 times before, the time Miguel got his head stuck in the stair railing, the time Claire tried to dye her hair blue and it came out green, the time I accidentally set the kitchen curtains on fire trying to make creme brulee. And then right before midnight, when the TV showed Times Square packed with freezing, hopeful people waiting for a ball to drop, we'd share our New Year's resolutions. It started when I was 7, my father's idea. He believed in accountability, in speaking your intentions out loud so the universe and your family could hold you to them. He believed that words had power, that promises made in front of people you loved carried weight that silent wishes never could. A resolution shared is a resolution kept, he'd say, raising his glass of cheap champagne like it was Dom Perignon.
For 23 years, we kept that tradition alive.
Through divorces and deaths, through job losses and celebrations, through every year that tried to break us, we showed up, we shared, we promised to be better. I'm Sofia Martinez. I'm 35 years old. I work in data analysis for a pharmaceutical company. I've never been married. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment that costs too much and has a view of a brick wall. And this is the story of the New Year's resolution that destroyed my family, and then somehow impossibly saved it. The tradition was simple in structure, complex in execution. We'd go around the table, oldest to youngest. My father would start back when he was alive with something modest, achievable, deliberately small. He never resolved to lose 50 pounds or run a marathon or write a novel. Those were fantasies disguised as goals, he'd say. Resolutions should be concrete. I resolved to finally fix the garage door that's been squeaking for 3 years. I resolve to beat Miguel at chess at least once before he graduates high school. I resolve to take your mother dancing once a month because I haven't done that in too long and she deserves better. He'd look at my mother when he said things like that, and she'd blush even after 30 years of marriage, even after 3 kids and a mortgage and all the mundane brutality of building a life together. My mother would go next. Hers were always about health or organization, the twin pillars of her anxiety management. I resolved to use the treadmill 3 times a week instead of using it as a clothes rack. I resolved to finally digitize all the old photos before they fade completely. I resolved to stop buying kitchen gadgets I'll never use. She never kept this one. Every year a new spiralizer or avocado slicer would appear. Then my older brother, Miguel. Miguel's resolutions were ambitious, sometimes absurdly so. He'd resolved to run a marathon despite never running more than 2 miles, to learn Mandarin despite barely passing high school Spanish, to start a business, write a screenplay, build a boat. He never finished any of them. But he tried. For a few weeks, sometimes a few months, he'd throw himself into whatever impossible thing he'd promised. And then life would get in the way, or his attention would drift, or he'd realize that learning Mandarin actually required daily practice and not just watching Chinese films with subtitles. That was Miguel. Big dreams, scattered execution, eternal optimism that this year would be different. Then me? Mine were practical, career-focused, measurable. I resolved to make senior analyst by June. I resolved to save $20,000. I resolved to read 1 book per month. I always kept this one. Sometimes it was the only resolution I kept. I liked goals I could check off, prove I'd accomplished, show my father that his investment in my education, his belief in my potential, hadn't been wasted. I was the responsible one, the one who finished what she started, the one who made Dad proud. And finally, Claire, my little sister, 7 years younger than me, 5 years younger than Miguel. The surprise baby, the one my parents hadn't planned for but welcomed anyway, even though money was tight and the house was small. Claire's resolutions were always different. When she was 8, She resolved to make everyone happy. When she was 12, she resolved to stop being so shy. At 15, to stop disappointing people. At 18, to figure out what I'm good at. At 21, to be someone Dad could be proud of. They weren't goals, they were wishes. Desperate, aching wishes wrapped in the language of self-improvement. I should have paid more attention to that. I should have heard what she was really saying. I don't think I'm enough. I don't think I matter. I don't think anyone sees me. But I didn't, because I was busy being the daughter who had it all figured out, and Claire was busy drowning in the shadow I didn't know I was casting. My father died 3 years ago. Lung cancer. He'd smoked for 40 years, started at 15, the way everyone did in his generation before we knew. Quit at 55 when Miguel's son was born, because he wanted to be around to see his grandson graduate high school. But the damage was done. The cough started small, persistent, but ignorable. Then it got worse. Then there was blood. Then there was a scan, and a biopsy, and a doctor with kind eyes delivering news that cracked our world in half. Stage 3. Inoperable. Treatment could buy time, but not much. He fought it for 18 months. Chemo that made him so sick he couldn't keep down water, radiation that burned his skin and left him exhausted for days, clinical trials that required us to drive 3 hours each way to a research hospital, where he'd sit in a cold room while poison dripped into his veins. I went with him to every appointment, took time off work, rearranged my life, sat in waiting rooms, reading magazines I didn't care about while my father disappeared into examination rooms and came back smaller each time. Miguel visited when he could, but he had a job, a kid, a wife who was threatening to leave him. She did, eventually, 6 months after Dad died. Claire came once, saw Dad hooked up to an IV, pale and shaking, and left the room crying. Didn't come back. It's too hard for her, my mother explained. She can't handle seeing him like this. I wanted to scream. We're all handling it. I wanted to say, we don't have a choice. But I didn't, because Claire was always fragile, always needed protection. And I was always the strong one. I was there at the end. Held his hand while he struggled for breath, his body finally giving up the fight. His mind refused to surrender. His eyes were open but distant, looking at something I couldn't see. Take care of them, he whispered. His last words to me, barely audible over the machines beeping their futile rhythm. Your mother, Miguel, Claire, promise me, Sofia. I promise, Dad. He squeezed my hand, weak but deliberate, and then he was gone. Just gone. One moment a person, the next a body. We buried him on a Tuesday in March. Gray sky, cold wind, the kind of day that feels like the world is mourning with you, even though you know it's not. The world just keeps spinning and doesn't care that your father is in a box in the ground. 200 people came to the funeral. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, people whose names I didn't know, but who all had stories about my father, how he'd helped them fix a fence, given them a ride when their car broke down, listened when they needed someone to listen. He was loved. Broadly, casually, the way good men are loved by their communities. But I wanted to scream at all of them. You didn't sit with him while he vomited bile because the chemo destroyed his stomach. You didn't watch him cry because the pain was so bad he couldn't sleep. You didn't hold his hand while he died. I did. And I would never, ever forgive Claire for not being there. The will reading happened 2 weeks later. My father had been meticulous about his estate. He was an engineer, organization, and precision were in his DNA. He'd worked as a civil engineer for the city for 35 years, designed bridges, planned infrastructure, solved problems with math and patience. He wasn't rich, but he was careful, saved diligently, invested wisely, lived below his means, drove the same truck for 20 years, bought clothes at discount stores, took us on vacations to state parks instead of Disney World. When he died, his estate was worth roughly $600,000, plus the house, a modest 3-bedroom in a neighborhood that had gentrified just enough to make the property valuable, assessed at $400,000.
$1 million total.
To be split equally among his 3 children? That's what the lawyer told us. I remember sitting in that office, wood paneling, leather chairs, the smell of old books and furniture polish. The lawyer was a man named Gerald, mid-60s, kind face, who'd known my father for 30 years. Your father was very clear about his wishes, Gerald said. reading from the document in front of him. He wanted to ensure that each of his children would be taken care of. The estate, including all liquid assets, and the proceeds from the sale of the family home, is to be divided equally 3 ways. $200,000 each, plus our share of the house sale, which would be another $130,000 each, roughly, after fees and taxes.
$330,000.
Life-changing money for all of us. I remember feeling this strange mix of grief and guilt. Grief because my father was gone, and no amount of money could change that. Guilt because I was inheriting money from his death, and some part of me felt like I was profiting from his absence. Miguel cried, not from sadness, from relief. He'd just started divorce proceedings. His soon-to-be ex-wife was asking for half of everything, including his retirement account. He was drowning in legal fees, barely keeping his head above water. The inheritance saved him, gave him breathing room, let him settle the divorce without losing everything, let him start over. Thank God, he whispered when Gerald finished reading. Thank God. Claire sat very still, didn't cry, didn't react, just stared at the table, hands folded in her lap like a child waiting for permission to leave. My mother squeezed my hand. He wanted you taken care of, she whispered, her voice thick. All of you. He worried so much about leaving you with nothing. He left us everything that mattered, Mom. She smiled, sad and small. I know, Mija. I know. The house would be sold. We'd split the proceeds 3 ways. Clean, equal, fair. That's what we all believed. For 2 years, that's what we believed. We were wrong. This year, New Year's Eve fell on a Tuesday. We gathered at my mother's apartment. She'd downsized after we sold the house. Too many memories, she'd said. Too many rooms filled with ghosts. She'd moved into a 2-bedroom condo, closer to her sister, who'd recently been widowed and needed family nearby. It was smaller, modern, nothing like the house we grew up in, but it was hers. Miguel brought his new girlfriend, Amanda. They'd been dating for 6 months. She was nice, genuinely nice, not performing nice. A kindergarten teacher with an easy laugh and a tendency to hug people she'd just met. "This wine is amazing," she'd exclaimed when my mother poured her a glass of grocery store Malbec that cost $12. "Your mom's tamales are incredible," she'd said, even though my mother's tamales were good but not incredible, and we all knew it. I liked Amanda, but her enthusiasm exhausted me. Everything was amazing, incredible, the best thing ever. Like she was afraid that if she stopped being positive for even a second, someone would decide she wasn't worth keeping around. Miguel was different with her. Lighter. He smiled more, laughed at her jokes, even when they weren't funny. He was trying to be better, to not repeat the mistakes that had destroyed his first marriage. I was happy for him. Claire came alone. She'd been alone a lot lately. Her boyfriend of 5 years, a guy named Derek, who worked in IT and talked too much about cryptocurrency, had left her 6 months ago. I need space, he'd told her, which is what cowards say when they mean I don't love you anymore, but I don't want to be the bad guy. Claire had called me, voice flat. Derek and I broke up. I'm sorry. Are you okay? I'm fine. Do you want me to come over? We could get dinner, or? No, I'm fine. Really. I just wanted you to know. Claire, I have to go, Sofia. I'll talk to you later. She hung up. I should have gone over anyway. Should have shown up at her apartment with wine and ice cream and demanded she talk to me. But I didn't, because Claire said she was fine. And I wanted to believe her, because believing her was easier than confronting the fact that my little sister was drowning and I was too busy with my own life to notice. We ate dinner, my mother's traditional New Year's spread: tamales, pozole, arroz rojo, tres leches cac, that was too sweet and somehow perfect anyway. Miguel told stories about his new job in tech sales, how he'd closed a huge deal, how his boss loved him, how everything was finally coming together. Amanda laughed at everything, touched his arm constantly, looked at him like he'd hung the moon. My mother fussed over details, refilled drinks before anyone asked, adjusted napkins, brought out more food even though we were all full. She was nervous, I could tell. She hated New Year's Eve now, because it reminded her of my father, of the empty chair at the table where he used to sit. But she smiled anyway, pretended she was fine. We were all pretending, except Claire. Claire barely spoke, pushed food around her plate, sipped water, stared at nothing. You okay? I asked her quietly while Miguel was in the middle of some story about a disastrous client meeting that had somehow ended in a sale. Yeah, just tired. Work busy? Something like that. She looked thin, pale, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating. I made a mental note to check in with her more often. Maybe take her to lunch next week. Maybe actually follow through this time.
New Year's resolution material.
At 11:30, my mother cleared the table, brought out champagne, the same brand my father used to buy, poured glasses for everyone. Miguel raised his glass. To Dad, he said quietly.
To Dad? We echoed.
We drank. The champagne was sweet and cheap and tasted like every New Year's Eve of my childhood. Time for resolutions, my mother announced, settling back into her chair with a forced brightness that broke my heart. Miguel groaned playfully. Do we have to? I never keep them anyway. That's because you resolved to climb Everest or learn to play the accordion or some other ridiculous thing, I teased. Hey, I almost learned accordion. You bought an accordion. That's not the same thing. This year's resolution is realistic, I swear. Let's hear it then, my mother said, smiling in that way that didn't quite reach her eyes. Miguel stood. He always stood for resolutions, like he was giving a speech, making it official. I resolved to be a better partner. He looked at Amanda, and something soft and genuine crossed his face. To listen more, to be present, to not take for granted the people who choose to be in my life. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Babe, and Miguel added with a grin, to finally beat Sofia at Scrabble.
Good luck with that. I'm undefeated for a reason.
My mother went next. I resolved to volunteer at the community center twice a month. The seniors program needs help, and I need something to do with my time that isn't just remembering. Her voice caught just slightly, but we all heard it. And I resolved to call my sister more often. She's been so good to me since everything. I should show her that I appreciate it. Simple. Achievable. Very her. Then it was my turn. I'd thought about this. Prepared. Rehearsed in my head while doing dishes earlier. I resolved to stop working 60-hour weeks, like my value as a human being is measured in productivity. I said it lightly, but I meant it. I resolved to actually use my vacation days instead of letting them expire, to travel somewhere I've never been, to remember that there's a world outside spreadsheets and meetings. My mother smiled. Good. You work too hard. You're going to burn out. And I added, looking at Claire, I resolved to check in with my family more, to make time for the people who matter, to stop assuming everyone's fine just because they say they are. I was looking at Claire when I said it. She didn't meet my eyes. Then it was her turn. Claire hadn't stood up, hadn't picked up her champagne glass, hadn't touched the food my mother had put on her plate. She sat very still, hands folded in her lap, staring at the table like she was reading something written in the wood grain. Claire, my mother prompted gently. Your turn, Mija. Claire looked up. Her face was unreadable. Not sad, not angry, just blank. Like she'd made a decision and was now simply executing it. I have 2 resolutions this year. Ambitious, Miguel joked. Going for the Overachiever Award? Claire didn't smile. My first resolution, she said, voice steady and calm, is to stop lying about what dads will actually said. The room went silent. The countdown show on the TV continued in the background, ignored. Someone was interviewing drunk tourists in Times Square. Everyone laughing, celebrating, unaware that in a small apartment 20 miles away, a family was about to implode. I felt my stomach drop. Felt the air change. Felt the moment split into before and after. What? My mother whispered. Claire's voice was steady. Too steady. Like she'd rehearsed this, practiced in front of a mirror until she could say it without her voice shaking.
The will we saw 2 years ago, the one Gerald read to us in his office, that wasn't Dad's real will.
Miguel laughed, nervous, confused, a sound that didn't match anything happening. Claire, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I found Dad's actual will 2 years ago, hidden in a box of his old files that Mom asked me to sort through. And instead of showing it to anyone, I hid it. And I created a fake will, drafted it myself, forged Dad's signature, even forged the witness signatures, and I showed you all that instead. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. I couldn't move, Couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. The words made sense individually, but together they were impossible. That's not funny, Miguel said, voice sharp and rising. Claire, that's not fucking funny. I'm not joking. Claire reached into her purse, pulled out a folded document, yellowed paper, creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. She set it on the table like it was evidence at a trial. This is the real will, last will and testament of Roberto Martinez, dated November 15th, 2020, 6 months before Dad died, signed, witnessed, notarized. Everything legal and binding. My mother was shaking. Claire, what are you? Why would you? Because I was jealous. Claire's voice broke, just slightly, the first crack in her composure. Because Dad's real will didn't split everything equally. It left the house to Sofia. Not split 3 ways, not to all of us, just to her. $400,000 worth of property, left entirely to my older sister, because she was his favorite, because she was the one who took care of him, because apparently I didn't matter enough to be trusted with it. I felt like I'd been punched. What? Claire looked at me. Her eyes were red but dry, like she'd cried all her tears already, in private, where no one could see.
Dad left you the house, Sofia. In his real will, he left Miguel and me the cash assets, $300,000 each, split evenly. But the house, $400,000. He left entirely to you.
She slid the document across the table. Read it yourself if you don't believe me. Miguel grabbed it, started reading, hands shaking. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. Claire, this is real. This is his signature. I've seen it 1,000 times. It's real, Claire confirmed. You faked a will. Miguel's voice was rising, panic and fury mixing. You faked a legal document? Claire, that's fraud. That's felony fraud. Do you understand what you've done? Do you understand you could go to prison for this? I understand. Then why? He couldn't finish. Couldn't articulate the enormity of what she was confessing to. My mother was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. How could you? She whispered. How could you do this to your sister? To your family? Claire, how could you? Because I was angry. Claire's voice rose for the first time, sharp and raw, because Dad always loved Sofia more, because everything she did was perfect and everything I did was never enough, because she was the smart one, the responsible one, the one he bragged about to his friends. And I was just there, just the youngest, just the accident, just the one who couldn't measure up no matter how hard I tried. That's not true, I said. But my voice came out weak, unconvincing. Because maybe it was true. Maybe I had been his favorite. Maybe he had seen me differently than he saw Claire. It is true, Sofia. You know it is. You were there at the end. You held his hand. You heard his last words. Where was I? At home. Too weak, too scared, too pathetic to face the fact that my father was dying. And even then, even dying, he chose you. He didn't choose me, I said, voice shaking. He didn't. Claire, I didn't know about any of this. I know you didn't. Claire's voice softened. Just slightly. That's why I could do it. Because you trusted me. We all did. You never questioned the will Gerald read. You never asked to see the original. You just accepted it. Because why wouldn't you? Your little sister wouldn't lie about something like that. Your family wouldn't betray you. She looked at my mother, at Miguel, at me. But I did. I betrayed all of you. I stole $400,000 from Sofia. I forged legal documents. I lied to your faces for 2 years. And I'm standing here on New Year's Eve confessing to all of it. Why? I asked quietly. Why now? Why not 2 years ago? Why not never? Why tell us? Claire took a shaky breath. And I saw it then. Something in her eyes I'd missed before. Something I should have seen weeks ago, months ago. Resignation. Finality. The look of someone who'd made peace with the end. Because I'm dying. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. Ripples spreading outward. Destroying everything. What? My mother whispered. I have cancer. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Diagnosed 3 months ago. They gave me 6 months to live. Maybe less if I'm unlucky. Probably less.
My mother made a sound I'd never heard before.
A wail, raw and animal. The sound of a mother's heart breaking. Miguel dropped into his chair like his legs had given out. Amanda sat frozen, tears streaming down her face, a stranger witnessing our family's complete destruction.
I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think, and couldn't reconcile the words I was hearing with any kind of reality that made sense. Claire continued, voice eerily calm now, like she'd stepped outside herself and was watching this happen to someone else. 3 months ago, I started having pain. Terrible pain. Like something was eating me from the inside. I ignored it for weeks, told myself it was stress, or bad food, or anything except what I knew it probably was. But it got worse. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, lost 15 pounds in a month. She paused, took a sip of water with hands that trembled. So I went to the doctor. They ran tests, did scans, found a mass on my pancreas the size of a golf ball. Biopsied it, cancer, aggressive, already spread to my liver, my lymph nodes, inoperable, terminal. No, my mother whispered. No, no, no. They offered me treatment, chemo, but not to cure it, just to maybe buy me a few extra weeks. Maybe. And it would make me so sick that those weeks would be hell. So I said no. I'd rather have 4 good months than 6 miserable ones. Claire looked at each of us. I've been carrying this guilt for 2 years. Every single day, it ate at me. Knowing I'd stolen from Sofia. Knowing I'd lied to all of you. Knowing that Dad would be ashamed of who I'd become. And when the doctor told me I had 6 months to live, I realized I can't die with this lie. I can't go to my grave letting you all believe something that isn't true. Even if telling the truth destroys you. Even if you hate me for it. Even if I spend my last few months alone because none of you can stand to look at me. She set her hands flat on the table. So that's my resolution. Stop lying. Face the consequences. Turn myself in. Not to the police, though maybe I should, but to you. To the people I love. To the family I betrayed. And spend whatever time I have left trying to earn forgiveness I know I don't deserve and probably won't get. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The countdown to midnight was happening on the TV. 10, 9, 8. My mother was sobbing. Miguel had his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Amanda sat very still, tears streaming, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. And I sat there staring at my little sister. My dying little sister who'd stolen my inheritance out of jealousy and was now confessing to all of it on the night we were supposed to celebrate hope and new beginnings. 3, 2, 1. Fireworks on the screen. Confetti. Cheering. Happy New Year. I'm so sorry, Claire whispered into the silence. I'm so sorry. The next 6 hours were a special kind of hell. My mother couldn't stop crying, deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were tearing something inside her. She kept repeating, my baby, like if she said it enough times, she could reverse the diagnosis. Miguel paced, kitchen to living room to kitchen to living room. Furious, devastated, confused, cycling through emotions too fast to land on any single one. She committed fraud, he kept saying. Felony fraud. She stole from Sofia. We have to. But he couldn't finish. Couldn't figure out what we were supposed to do with this information. Amanda stayed quiet. Eventually excused herself to the bathroom, and I heard her on the phone, voice low, probably calling a friend or her mother, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. And I sat there reading the real will over and over. Last will and testament of Roberto Martinez. The language was clear, unambiguous. To my daughter Sofia, I leave the family home at 4427 Maple Street, with the understanding that she will care for it as I have, and that it will remain a place of gathering for our family. Sofia has always understood the importance of home, of creating space for people to belong. I trust her to preserve that. To Miguel and Claire, he'd left the liquid assets, $300,000 each. But the house he'd left to me. Not because I was his favorite, though. Maybe I was. I don't know anymore. Maybe Claire was right about that, but because he thought I understood something the others didn't. The importance of home, of creating space, of preservation. And Claire had taken that from me?
Stolen it.
Erased it. Made it disappear like it had never existed. Why? I finally asked her. We were alone in the kitchen. My mother had gone to lie down. Miguel was outside smoking a cigarette, even though he'd quit 3 years ago. Amanda was still in the bathroom, probably hiding. Claire leaned against the counter, looking small and fragile, and nothing like the sister I'd grown up with. Because I spent my whole life feeling invisible next to you, she said quietly. That's not true. It is, Sofia. It is true. You were the smart one, the accomplished one, the one Dad bragged about to his engineer friends. My daughter, Sofia, she works for a pharmaceutical company, analyzes data. She's so sharp. He'd beam when he talked about you, like you were proof he'd done something right.
He was proud of you too.
No, he was polite about me. There's a difference. Claire's doing fine, working at the salon. She's good with people. Like that was consolation. Like being good with people was somehow less than being good with data. She wiped her eyes. And I know that's not fair. I know my insecurity isn't your fault. I know you never asked to be the favorite, never wanted that burden. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. So you punished me? I punished both of us. Because every day since I hid that will, I've hated myself. Hated who I became. Hated the fact that I was capable of something so petty and cruel. But I couldn't undo it. Couldn't confess. Because confessing meant losing everything. Your respect. Mom's love. Miguel's trust. And I'm a coward, Sofia. I've always been a coward. She looked at me with eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. I know you'll never forgive me. I know this is unforgivable. But I needed you to know the truth before I die. Because you deserved that house. You deserved to know that Dad saw you, valued you, trusted you with the thing that mattered most to him. I wanted to scream at her. Wanted to rage, to throw her out, to call the police and press charges and make her pay for what she'd done. But she was dying. 6 months, maybe less. And she was my sister. How long? I asked quietly. 4 months now, maybe 3 if the progression accelerates. The doctor said it's unpredictable. Are you in pain? Sometimes. Not bad yet, but it's getting worse. They gave me medication, but it only does so much. Are you doing any treatment? No. I told you there's no point. Chemo would just make me sick and buy me a few extra weeks of misery. I'd rather spend the time I have left trying to fix what I can, even though I know I can't fix this. You're right. You can't. We stood in silence. The apartment was so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking in the living room, could hear my mother crying softly in her bedroom, could hear Miguel's muffled voice outside, talking to someone on the phone. I don't forgive you, I said finally. I don't know if I ever will. Claire nodded. I don't expect you to. But I'm not abandoning you either. She looked at me, surprised. You're still my sister, I said, voice breaking. And I'm still angry and hurt. And I don't know how to process any of this. I don't know if I'll be able to look at you in a month without feeling this betrayal all over again. But I'm not letting you die alone. Sofia, don't. I held up my hand. Don't thank me. Don't apologize again. Just don't. I walked out of the kitchen, left her standing there, small and dying and sorry. Because I needed air. Needed space. Needed to figure out what the wreckage of my family looked like. And whether there was anything worth salvaging from the ruins. The legal fallout was immediate and complicated.
Miguel wanted to press charges.
She committed fraud, Sofia. Multiple felonies, mail fraud, forgery, theft. She stole $400,000 from you. You can't just let that go. We were sitting in my apartment 3 days later. I'd invited him over to talk without Mom or Claire present, to figure out what the hell we were supposed to do. She's dying, Miguel. That doesn't erase what she did. I know that. Then what are you saying? We just pretend it didn't happen? Let her steal from you and face 0 consequences. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure it out. He stood, paced, the same pattern he'd done at Mom's apartment, kitchen to living room and back. This is insane. She confessed to a felony. In front of witnesses. We have evidence. The real will, the fake will, everything. Any prosecutor would jump at this case. And then what? She goes to trial? Gets convicted? Sentenced to prison while she's dying of cancer? How does that help anyone? It helps you. It gets you justice. Justice. The word felt hollow. What does that even look like, Miguel? She stole money I never knew I was supposed to have. Money from a house that's already sold, proceeds already distributed and spent. I can't get it back. So what's the point? The point is, she has to face consequences. She's dying. That's her consequence. Miguel stopped pacing. Looked at me like I was speaking a language he didn't understand.
You're going to forgive her.
I didn't say that. You're going to let this go? I didn't say that either.
Then what are you saying, Sofia?
I thought about my father, about his last words.
Take care of them.
Not get justice from them, not punish them, take care of them. I'm saying I need time to think, to figure out what I actually want here beyond just revenge. She doesn't deserve your mercy. Probably not. But I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it for me. Because I don't want to spend the next 4 months, the last months of my sister's life, wrapped up in legal proceedings and criminal trials. I don't want my last memories of Claire to be courtrooms and lawyers. What about your last memories being her stealing from you? Those memories are going to be there regardless. At least this way, maybe there's a chance for, I don't know, something other than pure hate. Miguel sat back down, deflated. Mom's destroyed, he said quietly. She keeps saying she failed us, that she should have seen this, should have known. There's nothing she could have done. I know, but try telling her that. We sat in silence. What do you want to do? He asked finally. I want to talk to a lawyer, not to press charges, to understand my options, to see if there's any way to unwind this legally, get back what's mine without destroying what's left of our family. You think that's possible? I don't know. Probably not, but I have to try. I hired a lawyer named Rebecca Chen. No relation. She clarified immediately, though we both laughed, because of course, in a city of millions, I'd end up with a lawyer who shared my last name. She specialized in estate law, probate disputes, family conflicts. This is unusual, she said after I'd explained everything. Most estate fraud cases I see involve someone hiding a will to increase their own inheritance. Your sister hid a will to equalize everyone's inheritance at her own expense, or rather at yours.
Does that matter legally?
Not really. Fraud is fraud. Motive might affect sentencing, but not the crime itself. She reviewed both wills, the real one, the fake one, compared signatures, witness statements, dates. The real will is definitely legitimate, she confirmed. I'd need to do more analysis, but based on the notarization, the witness signatures, the date, this is your father's actual will. And the fake one, competently done, I'll give her that. She knew enough to make it look legitimate. But there are tells. The signature's slightly off. She traced it, probably, but there's hesitation in the pen strokes. The witness signatures don't match the handwriting on file with the county, and the notary stamp is from a kit you can buy online. It's not registered. So it's probably fake.
Yes, which means you have grounds to contest the estate distribution, potentially recover your portion of the house proceeds.
From who, Claire? She doesn't have any money. Rebecca paused. Actually, that's the question. What did she do with her share of the house sale? I didn't know. The house had sold for $420,000. After fees, it netted about $400,000. Split 3 ways, $133,000 each, roughly.
Miguel had used his to settle his divorce.
I'd used mine to pay off student loans and invest the rest. Claire had, where had her share gone? I'd need to subpoena her bank records to know for sure, Rebecca said. But typically, if someone commits fraud like this, they either spent the money on lifestyle expenses or they hid it. Given that she's confessing now, I doubt she hid it, so it's just gone. Probably. Which means even if you win a judgment, there's nothing to collect. You can't get blood from a stone. I felt tired. So tired. So what are my options? Rebecca folded her hands. Legally, you could pursue criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, theft by deception. With her confession and the evidence, it's an open and shut case. She'd likely be convicted. Sentencing would be complicated by her terminal diagnosis, but she'd face consequences. Prison? Unlikely given her condition. But fines, restitution, probation, it would be on record. She'd die a convicted felon. And civilly? You could sue her estate. Once she dies, whatever assets she has, if any, would go through probate. You could file a claim against the estate for the amount she stole plus damages. But again, if there's nothing there, you get nothing. So my options are to either criminally prosecute my dying sister or sue her corpse and get nothing. Rebecca smiled sadly. I've had better cases. Is there a third option? You could do nothing. Let it go. Move on. Just like that? Just like that. Forgiveness isn't a legal proceeding, Sofia. It's a choice. And sometimes it's the only option that doesn't destroy everyone involved. I thought about that. About what destruction looked like. About what my father would want. What would you do? I asked. If it was your sister? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I don't know. I'd want justice. But I'd also want peace, and those two things don't always coexist. She looked at me. The question you need to ask yourself isn't what Claire deserves. It's what you need. What will let you live with yourself in a year, in 5 years? Will you regret not prosecuting her? Or will you regret the time you spent fighting instead of whatever alternative you choose? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. I went to see Claire a week later. She'd moved in with our mother. Too weak to live alone now, the cancer eating her from the inside, making her fragile in ways that had nothing to do with emotion. Mom opened the door, eyes red, face drawn. She's in her room, Mom said quietly. She sleeps a lot now. How is she? Dying. Mom's voice broke. She's dying, Sofia. My baby is dying, and there's nothing I can do. I hugged her, felt her shake against me. I'm so angry at her, Mom whispered, for what she did to you, for lying. But I can't lose her angry. I can't spend her last months hating her. You don't have to choose, Mom. You can be angry and love her at the same time. Can you? I didn't know. Claire was in the guest bedroom, lying in bed, looking small under the covers. She'd lost more weight. Her face was gaunt, eyes too large. She looked up when I entered. Hey. I sat in the chair next to the bed. How are you feeling? Like I'm dying. A weak smile. But slowly. So there's that. We sat in silence. Mom says you saw a lawyer, Claire said finally. I did. Are you pressing charges? I don't know yet. You should. I deserve it. This isn't about what you deserve, Claire. It's about what I can live with. She looked at me. I thought about it a lot, I continued. What justice looks like, what I actually want here. And the thing is, I want the house. I want the $400,000 Dad left me. I want the choice he gave me, the trust he placed in me. I know. I'm sorry. But I can't have that. The house is gone. The money's spent. Nothing I do will bring it back. So the question becomes, what do I do with this anger, this betrayal? Do I turn it into a criminal case that won't change anything? Or do I try to find something else? Like what? I don't know yet. Claire closed her eyes. I spent your inheritance, she said quietly. I want you to know that. I didn't hide it or save it. I spent it. On what? Stupid things. A car I didn't need. A vacation to Europe I took alone because I didn't have anyone to go with. Expensive dinners. Designer clothes I wore once, trying to fill this hole inside me that I thought money could fix. She opened her eyes.
It didn't work. In case you were wondering. The hole's still there. Bigger now.
Claire, I don't have anything left to give you, Sofia. No money, no assets, just this broken, dying body and a lot of regret. So if you want to prosecute me, I understand. If you want to sue my estate, go ahead. There's nothing there, but maybe it'll make you feel better. I looked at her. My little sister, who'd spent her whole life feeling invisible. Who'd made a terrible choice out of pain and jealousy. Who was paying for it in ways I couldn't fathom. I don't want to prosecute you, I said finally. I don't want to spend your last months in courtrooms. I don't want my final memories of you to be trials and lawyers and legal proceedings. What do you want? I want you to tell me why. Really why. Not the surface answer about being jealous. I want to understand what was happening inside you that made this feel like the only option. Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she started talking, and I listened. She told me about growing up in my shadow, about parent-teacher conferences where teachers would say, "Oh, you're Sophia's sister, you must be so smart too," and then look disappointed when she wasn't. About family dinners where Dad would ask me about my classes, my plans, my achievements, and ask her, "How was your day, honey?" with a vagueness that suggested he didn't really want details. About the time she made honor roll in 10th grade and showed Dad excitedly, and he'd said, "That's great, sweetheart," without looking up from the newspaper. And then how I'd gotten early acceptance to college that same week, and he'd called everyone he knew to brag. I know he loved me, Claire said. I know that, but love and pride aren't the same thing. He loved me because I was his daughter, but he was proud of you because of who you were. That's not... It's true, Sofia, and I don't blame you for it. You earned his pride. You were brilliant and driven and everything a parent hopes for. I was just... Average. And being average next to exceptional feels like failure. She told me about finding the will, about going through Dad's files 2 months after he died, helping Mom sort paperwork, and finding the envelope marked last will and testament updated, about reading it and feeling her stomach drop. To my daughter Sofia, I leave the family home. I read that line over and over, Claire said, and each time it felt like confirmation, proof that I'd been right all along, that I was the lesser daughter, the one who didn't measure up, the one who didn't deserve anything except the cash that could be easily split. So you hid it.
Not right away.
First, I cried for hours. Then I got angry, furious at Dad for being so blatant about favoritism, furious at you for being so perfect, furious at myself for caring so much. She wiped her eyes. And then I thought, what if no one ever knew? What if I just made this disappear? Made it so we all got the same thing, equal shares, no favoritism. Would that be so wrong? It's fraud, Claire. I know. I knew that then too. But I rationalized it. Told myself I was actually making things fair. That Dad's will was the real injustice, not what I was doing. And the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like not exactly right, but necessary. A correction. So you faked a new will. I researched how to do it. Spent weeks learning about estate law, will requirements, what made a document legally binding. I found a template online, filled it in with Dad's information, split everything equally. Then I practiced his signature until I could replicate it. Practiced the witness signatures, bought a fake notary stamp. She laughed, bitter. I was meticulous, thorough. All the skills Dad taught me about attention to detail, I used to defraud my own family. And then you showed us the fake will. I brought it to Gerald's office. Said I'd found it in Dad's desk. He didn't question it. Why would he? I was Dad's daughter, grieving, just trying to help. He filed it. We read it. You all believed it. And you said nothing. I said nothing. For 2 years, I watched you split the house proceeds evenly, watched you use your share to pay off loans, watched Miguel settle his divorce, and every day I hated myself a little more. She looked at me. But I couldn't undo it. Couldn't confess, because confessing meant losing everything. Your respect, Mom's love, Miguel's trust, my own sense of self as a basically good person who'd made one bad choice. Except you kept choosing it, every day for 2 years. I know. We sat in silence. Why tell us now? I asked. Why not just let it die with you? Because I couldn't. Her voice broke. Because when the doctor told me I had 6 months, I realized I don't want to die with this lie. I don't want you to spend the rest of your life not knowing that Dad saw you, valued you, trusted you with something important. Even if it meant you die hated, even then, because you deserved the truth. Even if the truth came too late to matter. I looked at my sister, dying. Sorry.
Still my sister.
I don't forgive you, I said quietly. I know. But I don't want you to die alone, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if I should have been there. She started crying. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. There's a difference. I stood up. I'm going to visit twice a week, maybe more if you're getting worse. We don't have to talk about the will. We don't have to talk about anything heavy. We can just be sisters for whatever time you have left. Sofia, this doesn't mean I forgive you. It doesn't mean everything's okay. It just means I'm showing up. That's all I can promise right now. She nodded, crying too hard to speak. I left. Walked out of that room carrying anger and grief and a decision I didn't fully understand but knew was right. The next 4 months were surreal. I visited Claire every Tuesday and Friday after work. Sometimes we talked about her symptoms, her pain levels, how the medication was or wasn't working. Sometimes we watched TV together, mindless reality shows that required no emotional investment. Sometimes we just sat in silence. It was awkward, painful, heavy with things unsaid.
But I kept showing up.
Miguel came less often, once a week, usually Sundays, with Amanda. He'd sit stiffly, make small talk, leave after 30 minutes. He was still furious, couldn't reconcile his anger with her dying, couldn't figure out how to be both things at once. My mother was there every day, sleeping in the living room, monitoring medications, helping Claire to the bathroom when she became too weak to walk alone. She was drowning in grief and guilt and exhaustion. I'm so tired, she told me one night after Claire had gone to sleep. So tired of watching her fade, of knowing I can't stop it. I know, Mom.
Do you hate her?
Sometimes. Not all the time. It's complicated. Do you think you'll forgive her? I don't know. Maybe, eventually. Ask me in a year. She smiled sadly. You sound like your father. One afternoon in May, Claire asked me about work. About a project I was managing, a data analysis for a new drug trial. I told her about it. The complexities, the challenges, the satisfaction of finding patterns in chaos. She listened, really listened, asking follow-up questions, engaging. You're really good at this, she said when I finished, at making complicated things make sense. Thanks. Dad would be proud. I felt my throat tighten. Don't. I mean it. He always said you had this ability to see things others missed, to find the story in the numbers. Claire. I'm sorry I resented that. I'm sorry I couldn't just be happy for you. I looked at her, thin, pale, her body consuming itself. You were in pain, I said quietly. People in pain do destructive things. I'm not saying it's okay, but I understand it better now. Do you? Yeah, I think I do. We sat in silence. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She asked. Really forgive me? I don't know. Part of me wants to, part of me can't. Part of me thinks forgiveness is something you earn and you're running out of time to earn it. And the other part? The other part thinks maybe forgiveness isn't about you. Maybe it's about me deciding I don't want to carry this anger forever.
Which part's winning?
I smiled. Ask me next week. Claire died on June 7th. It was a Tuesday. I'd visited the night before. She'd been more lucid than usual, joking about the terrible hospital socks Mom had bought her. These are hideous, she'd said, holding up a pair with smiling avocados on them. They're cheerful. They're a crime against fashion. We'd laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in months. I'd left around 9 p.m. See you Friday, I'd said. See you Friday, she'd echoed. But Friday never came. Mom called at 6 a.m. She's gone, was all she said. I drove to the apartment in a daze. Claire was in her bed. Eyes closed, face peaceful, like she was sleeping, but she wasn't. She was just gone. My mother was sitting beside her, holding her hand. She went in her sleep, Mom said, voice hollow. I came to check on her this morning, and she was just gone. I sat on the other side of the bed, took Claire's other hand, still warm but empty. Did she say anything last night? She told me she loved me, that she was sorry for everything, that she hoped I could forgive her someday. What did you say?
I said I already had.
Mom started crying. I don't know if that was true. I don't know if I'd actually forgiven her, but I wanted her to die believing it. Is that wrong? No, Mom. That's love. We sat there for an hour, just the three of us, the living and the dead.
We buried Claire next to our father.
Sunset Hill Cemetery, Section C, Plot 247. Now, there were 2 Martinez graves instead of 1. The funeral was small, maybe 40 people, friends from her salon job, a few cousins, Mom's sister, Miguel and Amanda. I gave the eulogy because no one else could. Miguel was too angry. Mom was too destroyed. So I stood at the podium and talked about my sister. Not the sister who'd stolen from me. Not the sister who'd lied for 2 years. The sister who'd taught me to braid hair when I was 7. Who'd stayed up all night helping me study for finals even though she hated chemistry. Who'd held my hand at Dad's funeral when I couldn't stop shaking. Claire made a terrible choice, I said, looking out at the small crowd. She hurt people she loved out of pain and jealousy. She lied, she betrayed trust, and those things are true. I paused. But they're not the only truths. She was also kind, funny, loyal in ways that mattered until she wasn't. She struggled with feeling invisible, with measuring up, with believing she was enough, and in the end, she chose honesty over comfort. She confessed when staying silent would have been easier. She faced consequences knowing it would cost her everything. I looked at the casket. I don't know if I forgive her. I'm still figuring that out. But I know I love her, and I know that loving someone doesn't mean pretending they didn't hurt you. It means acknowledging the hurt and choosing connection anyway. I sat down. The priest said some words. We lowered the casket. People threw flowers. And then it was over. My little sister was in the ground next to my father. and I was standing in a cemetery wondering how I'd gotten here. After the funeral, I went home, sat in my apartment, surrounded by boxes of Claire's things Mom had asked me to sort through. Clothes, books, journals. I opened one of the journals at random. An entry from 3 years ago, right after Dad died. The funeral was today. Sofia held Dad's hand while he died. I couldn't even go into the room. I'm so weak, so pathetic. He probably died disappointed in me, and he was right to be. Another entry 2 years ago, right after she'd hidden the real will. I did something terrible today. I found Dad's real will. He left the house to Sofia, just to her. Because of course he did. Because she's the one who mattered. I hid it, created a fake one, split everything equally. I hate myself for it, but I hate her more for being everything I'm not. Maybe that makes me a terrible person. Probably. But I can't let her have this too. I can't. Entry from a year ago. Sometimes I think about confessing, telling Sofia the truth. But then what? She hates me. Mom hates me. Miguel hates me. And I'm alone. So I keep lying, keep pretending, keep drowning in guilt. Entry from 3 months ago, right after her diagnosis. The doctor says 6 months, maybe less. I thought I'd be terrified. But mostly I just feel relieved. Like maybe this is my punishment for what I did. Cosmic justice. I'm going to tell them before I die. They deserve the truth. Even if it destroys everything. Even if they hate me. Sofia deserves to know Dad saw her. Valued her. I took that from her. I have to give it back. Last entry, 1 week before she died. Sofia visited today. We watched the Great British Bake Off and didn't talk about anything important. She doesn't forgive me. I don't blame her. But she's still here. Still shows up. That's more than I deserve. Maybe that's what love is. Showing up even when it's hard. Even when forgiveness isn't possible. I wish I'd learned that sooner. I wish I'd been brave enough to just talk to her instead of stealing from her. But I wasn't. And now I'm dying, and all I have left are regrets, and a few weeks, and a sister who's choosing kindness over justice. I don't deserve her, but I'm grateful anyway. I closed the journal, and I cried. For my sister, for the years we lost to jealousy and lies, for the relationship we could have had if she'd just trusted me enough to be honest, for the fact that she died believing I didn't forgive her, because the truth is, I did. Somewhere in those 4 months of sitting together, of awkward conversations and painful silences and moments of genuine connection, I forgave her. I just never said it out loud. And now I never could. 6 months after Claire died, I did something I didn't plan. I took the money I'd saved over the years, money that should have been my inheritance if Claire hadn't stolen it, and I started a foundation. The Claire Martinez Foundation for Young Women in Crisis. Scholarship money for girls who felt invisible. Therapy resources for those struggling with family dynamics, self-worth, comparison. Mentorship programs connecting young women with professionals who could show them paths forward. Miguel thought I'd lost my mind. You're naming a foundation after her? After what she did to you. Because of what she did. Because I don't want other women to feel so desperate, so unseen, so inadequate that they destroy themselves and everyone around them. That's very forgiving of you. It's not forgiveness. It's memory. Claire existed. She mattered. Her pain mattered, even if her choices were wrong. And maybe if she'd had resources, support, someone to help her process her feelings, instead of letting them fester, maybe she wouldn't have made the choice she did. You really believe that? I don't know, but I want to try. I want her death to mean something beyond just loss. Mom cried when I told her, held my hands across her kitchen table and cried. Your father would be so proud of you.
Would he?
Yes, because you're doing exactly what he hoped you'd do with the house. Creating a place for people to belong, to be seen, to matter. I never got the house, Mom. No, but you understood what it represented. And that's what he wanted you to inherit. Not the building, the idea. Maybe she was right. Maybe all along, the house was just a symbol. And what I'd actually inherited was the responsibility to create space for people who felt like they had none. This year, New Year's Eve falls on a Wednesday. I'm hosting dinner at my apartment. My mother is coming. Miguel and Amanda, they're married now. A small ceremony last spring that Claire would have loved. We'll eat, drink wine that's probably too sweet, tell stories about Dad and Claire, trying to remember them as whole people instead of just the pain they left behind. And at 11:30, we'll share resolutions. Miguel will probably resolve to something ambitious and slightly absurd. Train for a triathlon, learn to play piano, write the novel he's been talking about for years. My mother will resolve to something practical and achievable. Use the gym membership she bought. Actually cook instead of eating frozen meals. Call her sister more. And I'll resolve to keep showing up. To keep creating space for people who feel invisible. To keep honoring my father's trust, even though I never got what he left me. To keep trying to forgive a ghost. Because forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a practice. A choice you make over and over, until one day you realize the anger doesn't burn quite as hot. The betrayal doesn't cut quite as deep. One day, you realize you've let it go. Not because they earned it, but because you needed to. I think about Claire a lot. About her 2 resolutions. That last New Year's Eve, she kept both of them. She stopped lying, told us the truth, even though it destroyed everything. And she turned herself in. Not to the police, but to us. To the people she'd hurt. Faced consequences knowing she wouldn't live long enough to make amends. It didn't fix anything.
Didn't erase the theft or the lies or the 2 years of betrayal.
But it was honest. And honesty, even devastating honesty, is a kind of bravery. Maybe the only kind that matters in the end. They say the truth will set you free. I don't know if that's true. Claire told the truth and it destroyed her. Destroyed us. But it also gave us something back. Time, clarity, the chance to say goodbye, even if we didn't say everything we should have. The chance to choose love over justice, connection over revenge, presence over punishment. My name is Sofia Martinez. My father left me a house I never got to keep. My sister stole it from me out of jealousy and pain and a desperation to matter. And when she was dying, she gave me something more valuable than any inheritance, the truth, even when it hurt. Especially then, the quiet reckoning doesn't always come with justice. Sometimes it just comes with honesty, and the choice to keep loving people even when they break your heart. Even when forgiveness feels impossible. Even when all you have left are questions and regrets and a foundation named after someone who hurt you. Because family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. It's about creating space for people to be seen. It's about remembering that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose mercy over judgment. Love over hate. Memory over erasure. If this story made you think about your own family, if you've ever carried a secret that consumed you, if you've ever had to choose between justice and compassion, you're not alone. This channel is for people who understand that the truth isn't always freeing, that sometimes it's devastating, that sometimes the people we love hurt us in ways we never see coming. But we survive anyway. We heal. We grow. We create meaning from the wreckage. Subscribe to The Quiet Reckoning for more stories where secrets shatter, where family bonds are tested, where forgiveness is complicated and love persists even when trust doesn't.
New story every week?
Because some reckonings are loud, courtrooms and confrontations and public exposures. And some are quiet, whispered confessions at a New Year's table, deathbed apologies, choices made in the space between anger and forgiveness. Hit that subscribe button. You'll want to see what happens next. The quiet ones? We're just getting started.